Good evening, everybody, and welcome to a very special episode of Orta Know Better. You may recognise the other bald man beside me here, Mr. Joe Wayman, and I'm hoping you do recognise the gentleman just below us both there, Mr. Kieran Maguire from The Price of Football. Good evening, chaps. How are we doing?
Good, mate.
Okay. Lost 3-0 at home to Villa last night, so never going to be in the chirpiest of moods, but life moves on.
It does indeed. So I know we are very limited on time tonight, Kieran. So what I really wanted to get from you, I know, thank you ever so much again for joining us as you do every year, to give us a bit of a, and I say this with the greatest respect, Leeds fans, but an idiot's guide to the figures and the sums and everything that's been released very, very recently. So I suppose a good starting point for me, Kieran, certainly would be, in a nutshell, where do Leeds United stand, and is it time to start ringing alarms and panicking and throwing, starting getting loans out and sending them to Leeds United and that sort of thing?
Well, let's deal with that second question first. There's nothing to panic about. Yes, there's the odd number which looks a bit squeaky bummish, and Leeds would be far better in the Premier League next season than in the Championship. But you know that anyway. There are some amazing positives. That Leeds made more money from ticket sales in the Championship last season than they did in the 2 previous seasons in the Premier League. 3 previous seasons in the Premier League. I appreciate one was a COVID season. Leeds are making more money from being Leeds United, a horrible word, as a brand, in the sense that they make more commercial income, not just more than every other club in the Championship, but also more than 10 clubs in the Premier League. So, as an investment, as something which is attractive to broadcasters, sponsors, commercial partners, Leeds is really in a strong position. They did lose. I mean, the headline will be Leeds lost 60 million quid last year. Can they continue to do that? I would say yes, they can, because of that 60 million pounds, 60 million of that was down to this thing called amortization. So it's not, amortization isn't cash; it's just accountants being Egypts. So Leeds on a cash basis, they were absolutely fine. They broadly broke even. So all of those are positives. There was a fair amount of money that came into the club. So 49ers put in 140 million quid by the looks of things in physical cash. That can go to either strengthening the squad this summer in the Premier League. That could be used as part of the broader aim to improve the facilities at Ellen Road and training facilities. So I think the club's in a strong position. The only things which are slightly concerning is that during the Radrizzani experiment in the Premier League, and I know I upset a few Leeds fans last year when I pointed this out, was that they bought an awful lot of players in the Premier League, but they bought them on credit. So they owe other clubs 140 million quid in unpaid transfer fees. But everybody does that. And if you've got an expensive squad, and Leeds do, then expensive players don't come cheap.
No, absolutely. I think you sort of hit the nail on the head there with the credit, and I think that sort of leads on to my next question, and certainly quite an important one. But we've transfer fee receivables of 69 million accounted for in those accounts, but transfer fees payable 142 million. Do you expect those to even out with the most recent sales of obviously Jorginho Rutter to yourselves at Brighton, Somerville, and Archie Gray, and then not spending a great deal in the summer, but actually
we made the most in Europe, right? I think we made the most player transfers in Europe in the summer. Sorry.
Yeah, I think Leeds are absolutely fine. That there are. It's not like the Peter Ridsdale years. It's not like that horrible period of the club's history when you were being passed around from slightly unknown owner to slightly more unknown owner, and you weren't quite sure who owned the estate. I think that there's a degree of professionalism now at the club. I've met Parag. He's come on my podcast. I've met people sort of senior from Leeds, and I've been sort of impressed that whilst it's a bit boring in the sense that they are sensible business people, they're not nutters. You had the who years with our Italian friend, who was great entertaining for everybody who wasn't a Leeds fan. So I don't see any problems. The funding's come in from the investors. 49ers aren't in this for giggles. They're in this as serious business people. They make serious business decisions, and the ability of Leeds to convert the talent that you have required into cash, I think has put the club in a strong position going forwards.
Yeah, I mean that's certainly a positive, and certainly what we want to hear. I think one of the biggest takeaways from your breakdown and the way you broke it down on Twitter specifically, and I know we're talking last year's figures here, although it's this year's figures, we're talking last season's figures all the time, aren't we? We're talking 23, 24 rather than 24, 25. Wages of £84 million and not being able to get out of the Championship. I know and how sustainable, because I don't imagine the wages have changed that drastically over the last 12 months. Because whilst we've lost three relatively big earners, I imagine the amount of players that we've brought in as well. So I don't expect that to change too much. And hypothetically speaking here, obviously, Kieran, worst case scenario, we are squeaky bum time and we all think the worst at Leeds United that is going to happen. And, we're probably going to be relegated next season from the Championship if you were to ask most Leeds fans. But how sustainable is that based on if we were to not be promoted this season in the Championship?
Well, to sort of put it in some form of context, the average wage in the Championship is £13,000 a week, and last season Leeds were playing on average 42.
Right. So
and all of the clubs in the Championship are losing money. They're losing on average about 350, 400 grand a week. So under those circumstances, it's not sustainable. Even if and let's be honest, Leeds are the biggest fish in the pond as far as the Championship are concerned, and they have been for that period of time prior to getting promoted and since being relegated. So that does give them some advantages, but not the ability to pay 3 times the level of wages of everybody else. Players will go. If Leeds don't get promoted, then you have saleable inventory, and it's a horrible way to describe it because we're talking about young men and their careers. But I can assure you there are plenty of admirers of some of your players in your squad. So again, I think that will give you another 12 months of recuperation time, and then some of those players that you did sign in the Premier League, they'll be coming to the end of 3 or 4 year contracts, and the wage bill will drop. So I don't see it. I genuinely don't see it as essential. Sometimes you see that phrase on a job application: desirable but not essential. As a fan, you want to get promoted. I absolutely understand that, and also you've got an 80% chance of being promoted, given where you are.
I would take that 80%. I'd snap your hand off with that 80%, Kieran, because I said 75% before we played Swansea. So I'm sure it is much higher than that. But in terms of the actual numbers, because when I look at a spreadsheet, I'll be honest with you, Kieran, it just looks like it looks like the Matrix to me. So in terms of breaking that down, and I know you've done it year on year from 2013, but in terms of this most recent release, is there any obvious signs of financial strain anywhere that the business is, or the model that we're currently using is failing?
I don't think it does. I mean, the money that Leeds owe for outstanding transfers, that's down by £50 million. The level of borrowings is down by £20 million. The club has made progress. The issue is it's losing money in an accounting sense, but not a cash sense. Leeds still spent reasonably well in 38 million pounds by Championship standards is a decent amount. It's more than Luton Town spent when they were in the Premier League last season, but admittedly they didn't have a very good season. So I don't see any financial crisis in terms of A, these numbers, and B, worst case scenario that you've got to have a third season in the Champion. You'll still get parachute payments next year. The only concern would be is that the parachute payments have decreased by £10 million this year, and they'll decrease by another 17 or 18 in 25-26 if Leeds don't get promoted. So it's not great, but I still think there is the capacity to buy in the transfer market. There's certainly the capacity to loan players, and again, Leeds is seen as a good destination by Premier League clubs and other clubs, if from a loan point of view, because you're getting the Premier League level of intensity and expectation, which is what they want for especially for some of their younger players. And we know that at Brighton in terms of Ben White and so on. So I'm feeling really positive. You can always find negatives in finances if you really want to look for them, but I personally don't see them. The costs have come down substantially. You've got players who you have sold in 24-25, which will assist your 24-25 figures. In terms of PSR, that might be slightly restrictive, but you just sell one more player.
Yeah. We've had a question here from Michael Gott, Kieran. Do any of the financial adjustments do you think have an effect on an empty January transfer window? We don't ever tend to spend a lot of money in January, specifically this January. Do you think there is one eye on PSR there?
Muted, Kieran.
I can't hear you, Kieran. Sorry.
In your second season in the Championship, you're allowed to lose £61 million. In your first season, you're allowed to lose 83. So there has to be some form of acclimatization, and that's the purpose of parachute payments. It's to allow you to not have to sell everybody when you get relegated, to still allow the club to be competitive as far as being at the right end of the table is concerned. So I think from the club's point of view, do you want to sign a player on a 3.5 or 4.5 year contract in January, and that player, we've got the Kevin Phillips Augustine experiment when that clearly didn't work in the Championship, and that was worst transaction of all time, as I'm sure you're aware of the numbers. It's always a good pub quiz question, which I set for when I do my live shows. The most expensive player in the history of world football on a cost per minute basis.
Kieran, you did so well there of reassuring fans, and now you've just thrown us back under the bus.
But that's history. That's history, isn't it? Yeah, that's the positive. So I think January, the club will only recruit if it feels that it can A, improve the overall quality of the squad, and B, if it is going to sign a player, is that player of a standard which would be appropriate for the Premier League next season? Yeah. So under those circumstances, why do it?
I think the good example you got to look at there is Sheffield United and the player, the players that they've got, Sunderland, the players they've signed as well. They're going to be carrying these. It was the striker that Sheffield United have signed from Leicester. Tom Cannon, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Tom Cannon, they paid 10 million quid for Tom Cannon, who was not good enough to play for Leicester, who were doing absolute rubbish in the Premier League. Should they get promoted, they're stuck with a £10 million striker that they're not going to be able to shift. I do appreciate that. And whilst we'd all like a shiny new toy in the January window, just try and get us over the line, we'll let that one slide for now. In terms of you've mentioned PSR, but in terms of the PSR, you said the first season you can lose 80 million, second 61. Does that then drop again if we weren't to be promoted? Is it down to 40 something?
Yeah, it goes down to 39 because the way that it works is that you're assessed over 3 years. And for every year that you've been in the Premier League, you're allowed to lose 35. And for every year that you've been in the Championship, it's 13. So last season was 2 years Premier League, 1 year's Championship, that's 83. This year it's 2 in the Championship, 1 in the Premier League, so that's 61. Next year would be third year in the Championship, so it dropped down to 39.
Got ya. Joe, have you got any questions?
Yeah, I guess if, you mentioned that 150 million, was it, that was
142.
142. Do we know what the reason that is for? Because obviously there's talk of a stadium expansion potentially on the horizon, obviously maybe Premier League football on the horizon. Would there be a reason as to why they would have just put that in, or is it just general day-to-day running costs? I'm not sure.
I think that's a fair question. Last season, Leeds whilst Leeds sold players for decent prices, they sold the players on credit as well. And you also had quite a big legacy from the Premier League years where you were still paying for instalments. So Leeds hemorrhaged £67 million worth of cash going out, despite the fact that they sold decent players because couldn't get the money for them. So I think it was an element of cash flow management. It was an element of setting the club up for 24-25, because clearly they thought that they were going to make a substantial loss this year. So it was historic issues and also allowing the club to be competitive this season. So that the cash was needed. I think the good news was that it's been spent reasonably well. As an outside observer. My next door neighbour's he's a Leeds fan and he goes on a regular basis. And when I talk to him, he says, we could have a better squad. But then my response would be, show me any club which couldn't have a better squad. So I don't think that money has been wasted. It has been used to pay down some debt, to pay the legacy costs of the Radrizzani era. And Radrizzani assisted the club in getting promoted, but then used the club credit card to invest. And I'm not qualified to say how well that money was spent in that second stroke third year in the Premier League.
It wasn't spent well. Will there be any? I guess I know it's not Leeds specific, but obviously there's talk of Prague and 49ers maybe looking at Rangers as well. Will there be any crossover there, do you think, Kieran? Will that have any impact? Because, I just wondered if you...
This multi-club ownership model, it's something which looks good on paper, but I've never really seen one work spectacularly well. People talk about the City Football Group, but the majority of the clubs there are losing money, and all of the focus is on Manchester City. Red Bull do theirs quite well, but they're getting loads of free advertising for Red Bull. There's 350 clubs dotted around who are in these multi-club models. I think to a certain extent that Prague and 49ers investments, they see certain parallels between Leeds and Rangers. Both have incredibly passionate fan bases. Both sell out every match home and away. Both sell merchandise by the bucket load, and therefore they see some benefits. Yeah. Is there the possibility to have effectively a joint kit manufacturing deal? Because if you can go to Adidas and say, we still get our own identity, but you could potentially go to a sponsor. Could you go to Red Bull and say, look, we can offer you both Leeds United and Rangers. This is the number of shirts that we're selling in a season. That becomes quite seductive. If you go to other sponsors and you say, we've got north and south of the border, two huge clubs in their own right, we can offer you attention every match of the season because both clubs make noise and both clubs get lots of media. So those are the positives. My only reservation, and also there's a case for saying, you might have players at Leeds United who you want to go out on loan, but one of the downsides of sending out players on loan is that the other club might have a different culture, tactically, technically, and so on. And I know this when Brighton owners Tony Bloom, he had a club in Belgium. So when Brighton signed Mitoma couldn't play in the Premier League because he didn't have enough. He didn't have enough points from the Department of Employment. So you send him out elsewhere. Rangers will be playing in Europe every season. So therefore, if you've got let's say there's a player that you want in Leeds, you get promoted, not got enough points for the Premier League, you send him to Rangers for one season, he gets some European football, all of a sudden his points go up. Leeds and Rangers are playing the same style because you've got somebody overlooking the whole of the football operation. Player gets the points, comes to Leeds, and he doesn't have that second set of acclimatisation issues to do because he knows the Leeds / Rangers way. He knows the expectations in terms of diet and sports science and the way we play football. And in theory, that allows him to acclimatise to the demands that you put on the player that much more easily. I think the concern is you get to the Premier League, what's the next step? You want to play in Europe. What happens if Leeds United and Rangers are both in the Europa League? You've got complications. Now, UEFA acknowledged this. Manchester United had an issue with offshore gyms got a club in France, and they signed some document, and I know this was an issue for both Brighton and Villa when they were both in European competitions last year. So there are solutions for this. They're a bit messy. I guess my ultimate concern would be, I go back to the fan base. You both want to be top dog.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you're in a group, somebody has got to be sitting on the top of the pile. And if there is an overall transfer budget of £100 million and you got to the last 20 million, you don't want that to be going to Rangers, and Rangers fans equally don't want it to be going to Leeds United. So you look at most multi-club models and you can see a pecking order. I wouldn't want to say, and I certainly wouldn't want to say this in a pub, Rangers is higher up than Leeds or Leeds is higher up than Rangers, because either way you're going to get a battering.
If you're in Glasgow, say and then if you're
yeah.
Just really, I know you. Sorry, Kieran. I don't want to keep you too late. I know you've got got to shoot off very, very shortly. I just got a couple of sort of, I suppose, summarising questions, and the first is: have Leeds United got anything to worry about, irrespective of what league we're playing in next season? When it comes down to finances, right now.
No, I'm very relaxed. I think I know you've still got the scars from previous regimes. I think there's a greater degree of professionalism. 49ers Investments is a very forensic, very professional outfit. They would not have put money into Leeds United. And I know, Parag's been a big fan of Leeds United for a decade before he got the opportunity to get involved with the club. So I'm not worried at all.
Great stuff. And then, if you were a betting man, what league will Leeds be playing in next season, Kieran?
Oh, Premier League. I think it wasn't a good result against Swansea, but you look at the rivals. I mean, Burnley are brilliant at not conceding goals. You've got to give them a hell of a. Was it 11 in 39 matches? That's ridiculous. But they've still got a few 0-0 draws left in them on the back of that. And isn't it a case of Burnley and Sheffield United have still got to play each other?
The third from last fixture of the season. Joe, you're muted if you're going to talk, mate. Sorry.
No, I was just saying, they play each other, and we're now dropping our keeper, so hopefully that'll work in our favour.
So I'm looking forward. I mean, certainly as an away fan, I love coming to Ellen Road. Proper ground, proper fans.
Love it. Listen, Kieran, I can't thank you enough again for joining us. As you do every year, you break it down and make it a bit more approachable and readable and understandable, I think. And hope to see you on here again next season. And hopefully we might even be able to do a bit of a pre-match game before Brighton, and potentially afterwards as well. So do keep Jorginho Ruta warm for us, because we will be signing him again one day.
He's out for the rest of the season, sadly. He got injured. He got injured against Forest. Looks like he's done his hamstring. So he best we can hope for, he'll get the last 2 games of the season. But there's a fair chance. I mean, he's such a lovely lad. He's slightly mad because he collects Pokemon.
He bought a horse when he was at
by accident, didn't he? He bought the horse by accident.
So he's what you want. He's completely bonkers. Everybody loves him because he's always got a smile on his face. I can't put it into words better than that. Look, Kieran, you better go get the wife before Leeds fans start tries getting into trouble. So thank you ever so much once again, and we'll hopefully catch up in the new year, new season, new year. All the best, guys. All the best for the rest of the season.
Thank you ever so much. Cheers.
For now. Bye-bye.
There we go.
What do you make of that then, Joe? I mean, it's obviously reassuring, isn't it, hearing it come from somebody who's so involved with football finances, and it just takes that little bit of weight off your shoulders, because the amount of people I read on Twitter and social media saying that's it, we are doomed if we don't go up, and it is doom and gloom. Everybody wants to see a negative in it. How have you taken that? Obviously, there's only one way to take it, I suppose.
Yeah, no, it's all positive, Luke. I think, look, as much as I might give them stick at time, I think he's bang on the money in terms of the being. They're not cowboys. They're not a one-man band. It's a whole group of people, and clearly they know what they're doing. In terms of, like, even if he said if we weren't to go up, you might have to sell an extra player or something, but we're still going to be in good shape, aren't we? Which is good, because obviously you do worry normally if it's third-year parachute payment, then you're thinking, oh my God.
I think the thing that would concern me most, Joe, if we don't go up this time, but I think we still do, is the teams that are going to be in this league next season.
Yeah, exactly.
The 3 teams coming up are all going to be relatively dangerous by the looks of it. The 3 teams that are coming down, Ipswich are prepped to go back up immediately, if they don't stay up this season, which would be a miracle, but they did pull a win from out their asses last night, didn't they? So for me, I really enjoy speaking to Kieran, because it just makes me calmer. Just chills me out a little bit. Did you want to tell anybody about what we're doing on the 20th of July before we let everyone go?
Yeah, we've got the Creator Cup, haven't we, mate? Yeah,
we have.
You're actually the coach on the opposing team,
I'm the coach, on the opposition. So I do apologize. I don't apologise, but I tried infiltrating Joe's chat group last night and giving them all a little bit of stick whenever they'd be able to.
I can't wait, to be honest, mate. I think it's going to be a fun day out. I had a couple of messages actually last night off of people that I know have watched the channel for a while and I've interacted, and they were like, I've bought my tickets, I'm bringing my family along and all that. So it's going to be great to meet them people as well. Do you know what I mean? Like that have like, you know, I've spoke to for 5 years now just from doing the channel that you go, oh, it's huge. You know what I mean? So that's going to be good, and just seeing all yous in the flesh and that, and it's going to be quality in it, man.
It is. And if you do want tickets, there is a link here. So if you go onto the leedscreatorcup.com, you can get tickets there. If you scan that barcode as well, I believe that will take you to the website. Apparently, if the first of the, I think we've already sold more than 50 tickets, so I'm not sure that still applies. It might do. You're better off asking Joe Blackburn. Just before we do go, Joe, though, what do you make of Farkas been a bit ballsy then with Melier?
Yeah, to be honest, I did a show with Matty the other night, and I felt that he had to at this stage, Luke. He had to. I mean, if he'd have gone with Mez again, I mean, and he'd have made another error, like I think even I'd have said, get him out, get the manager out. Do you know what I mean?
What happens if Darlow was a stinker this weekend?
Oh no, right? Like we're fucked then, aren't we? We're screwed.
Because what I've seen of Darlow isn't great. I'll be honest
with
you.
No, of course. No, you're right. But anything's better than Mez. Do you know what I mean?
Do you know what though, Joe? And I still stand by this. He could have been the man of the match at the weekend had he not fucked up those twice. I thought he was absolutely
said that
great
as well, bro.
For 60 minutes
said that.
almost.
And yeah, I feel sorry for him. Do you know what I mean? I do feel sorry for him. Farkas sort of alluded to the fact that it seemed like he was relieved as well. And he said he was laughing and joking afterwards with his teammates, so maybe he needed it. But again, that shows you that fucking hell, he's probably at world on his shoulders as well, and he probably can't wait to just sit on sidelines and watch it, you know?
Yeah.
I know a lot won't agree, Luke, but he's been an okay servant, man. You know, he's probably played his last game now, hasn't he? If we go up.
Oh yeah, I don't think. I think if we get promoted, it'll be almost prime objective number one to get a goalkeeper, won't it? And he will either be sent out on loan or probably be sold, I think, to the continent. But I
think he's in his final year, same as Bamford next year. So
yeah, he'll probably be sold, I should imagine then.
Yeah.
Anything else you wanted to say before we go? Have you got anything coming up?
No, mate. I'm confident that Leeds are going up again, mate. Now after the presser.
Prediction from Saturday?
I'm going to say.
You've already said 1-1, actually.
1-1, yeah. I think 1-1. Yeah.
And then confident we're getting promoted, even with a draw this weekend.
Yeah. So yeah. That'll probably
come on,
change.
You got to explain that.
No, I do. Look, the 1-1 has been what I've said all week. It might change by tomorrow's preview. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Wicked. Look, mate, I really appreciate you jumping on. Unfortunately, Gilly had something else to attend to, so short notice, absolute star. Thank you ever so much. You probably do, but if you don't already follow Joe, go follow him on Twitter at Wayneman Joe and go subscribe to the Just Joe Football Show. We will be back Sunday for Berardi and Coke following the Luton win down in Luton. We're gonna be back showing that up. So do subscribe, do like, and we'll see you Sunday. Cheers, everyone.